welcome to Conversations Under Installations. We have with us expert on asset integrity, Theo Knijff, who is also author of recommended practice for CUI monitoring. So welcome Theo again.
Thank you.
So last session we talked about the need for recommended practice, which you have authored with the joint industry partners, and you outlined the whole recommended practice and accessibility of it and the core contents. I would like to dig deeper into one specific aspect which you have covered, briefly touched upon in the last session, which is inspection strategies based on CUI monitoring. How inspection can change, right? So can you elaborate on the recommended practice, what this section will talk about, inspection strategies on CUI monitoring?
Yeah. First, let me give a generic summary on inspection strategies. When you're looking throughout the industry is typically using the standards. One of them is, for instance, API. And basically, you, as an asset owner, you will select a certain strategy for a certain asset. So probably you will have multiple inspection strategies in place. First one is operator failure. And then you have to think about, for instance, a 1-inch condensate line. You're not interested to inspect, that's a waste of money. Second one is time-based. It's not that common for fixed equipment, so I will not refer to that.
So where is it common then?
It's more or less, let's say, if, for instance, you've got a fixed interval and then you will inspect for a certain damage mechanism. So you have to think about, for instance, a plate and frame heat exchanger that is in a fouling condition. Okay. So for instance, every 5 years you have to replace it because you cannot inspect, it's fouled and you have to replace it. So that's more a time-based, let's say, a regime. More important is condition-based and risk-based inspection. Condition-based is typically what is selected, and it depends on a fixed time interval, for instance for CUI, typically every 5 years, and that is half remaining life. So you need to understand your corrosion rate, and that means that dictates your half remaining life. So the minimum of 5 years or half remaining life will set your inspection interval. Risk-based inspection, you take risk into account, consequence of failure, likelihood of failure. So that means that your interval is somewhat flexible, typically between 5 to 12 years, something like that. Regulatory inspections, follow those strictly. These are set by the authorities. So now you've got continuous monitoring systems installed. The output is typically a corrosion rate and location. So that means that you've got those wire sensors all around your assets. So that means that at a certain spot, you will have that data, you might find moisture and you might have accelerated corrosion. So that means that these two outputs, data outputs, you can use to optimize your inspection strategy. If you're talking about a condition-based inspection regime, it's you can calculate, or you do have better data for your corrosion rate. In the past, it is based on an inspection every 5 years or an expert opinion. Now you've got real life rates, and you can optimize. Locations, if you're talking about API, for instance, you need to inspect 50% of your suspect areas. So there is always some risk. With CUI monitoring systems, you know exactly where there is moisture, so you can select those for inspection. So that means that the accuracy or the efficiency of inspection, even for condition-based, will improve enormously.
So let me dig deeper into that. So you mentioned about API, I believe you're talking about API 570 and 583, API 570 in particular. How monitoring can impact the inspections while still adhering to API 570 philosophy? Is it captured in the recommended practice, and what are the aspects of this?
Yes, it's captured. So that means that you still need to use your maintenance management system in scheduling the CUI inspection, so every 5 years, as example. but the inspector will have, let's say, real life data output for corrosion rates and moisture locations. So during a pre-inspection, you can already select the susceptible locations and meet the API requirements of, for instance, 50% of the you must inspect 50% of the suspect areas for piping circuits, as example for hazardous chemicals.
So the monitoring can meet the requirements of API 570 through suspect areas identification
Yes.
and
Yes.
qualification of that.
Yeah.
So great, and you talked about corrosion rates being one of the outputs of the monitoring system which can be useful here. How do you see corrosion rates being useful for inspection decisions?
It's, let's say, for inspection, let's say the only thing that will count is remaining life.
Mm-hmm.
So you must define your remaining life. Typically, that's more than 5 years, but you have to track it. So that means that if you have installed monitoring systems, means that you can predict, let's say, your remaining lifetime much better. So that means that the efficiencies of your inspections will be much higher.
But what if there are coatings on the asset? Like you're giving corrosion rates from the monitoring system, but it's not of the assets, but there are still coatings. So how do you combine the two information?
You must include the coating condition,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the difference, for instance, between the condition-based and risk-based inspection. Condition-based, you must go to the field and inspect, so you need to monitor your coating condition, and that's another, let's say, input for remaining life. Let's say that for condition-based, your strategy remains as is, only you've got more accurate data output from that monitoring system. For risk-based inspection, the strategy remains as is, but let's say your corrosion rate used in your RBI study is, let's say, much more accurate. So that means that you can predict equipment behavior much better.
Great, and with this recommended practice and incorporating inspection strategies with monitoring within that, what is your wish? Where is the state of the industry right now, and where you would like it to go in the next few years with this practice?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I mean, I think the ultimate goal is using continuous monitoring inspection strategy. So that means that you 100% rely on your monitoring system. You're not going to inspect unless you exceed a certain risk. So that means that the philosophy of RBI must be included within your monitoring system. So you must have some software in that monitoring system that will provide you a consequence of failure and a probability of failure. And those two is the definition for risk. So that means that if your risk level exceeds a certain value, you must take action. And in the last session before, I told you that inspection will not improve the mechanical integrity, repair does. So instead of you going for more inspection or better inspection, now you can focus on optimizing your repair strategy.
Yeah.
If your risk is exceeded, just repair. Refurbish, repair, and at the end your long-term cost of ownership will be much lower. Let's say you will lower the likelihood of a process safety incident.
Thank you, Theo. And we are coming to the tail end of this session, but I would like to get one message from you. You are a champion for CUI in asset integrity for quite a long time.
Yes.
You have championed the cause of CUI in your previous job, as well as now you are making recommended practice and then educating the whole industry about what should be done. What is your key message around the industry, for the industry to look at CUI as and the how can they manage it better?
Mm-hmm.
Monitoring or otherwise, recommended practice or otherwise. What is your key message to the industry for this problem?
I think that you need to set the next step, be smarter. And I think that you can only be smarter by using AI, using monitoring systems. I mean, there's so much data that can be used to predict CUI much better than, let's say, call it the old-fashioned way, remove insulation, have a look, and do something. or not and accept the risk. So use AI, use monitoring systems, combine, and we will be much smarter, we will be more effective, we will have a lower likelihood of a process safety incident, and we will save money.
Thank you, Theo. Thank you for coming to us and talking about the recommended practice. I hope that this is adopted industry-wide as a recommended practice and by the industry bodies as well.
Yeah.
And thank you for coming with us. With that, we close this session. If you need access to this recommended practice, please do reach out to Corrosion Radar. We have access to it, and we can take permission from the committee and then share the appropriate versions as well. So thank you for this session. See you in the next session.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Thank you.